Good afternoon and good evening to all of you all. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizing team of Aravind Eye Care System and Mr. Arun for introducing me, and even Dr. Usha Kim for the opportunity given to me, and hope I'll be able to do justice for my topic. And the topic given to me, I think, thank you for the responses given by the audience. And I think it depends upon, it's a practice, so I'll be dealing all those things in the session what I'm going to handle. So when you talk about allied health professionals need three important things. That is, three professional disciplines are necessary for them. One is knowledge, practice, and attitude. These are always necessary, based on which all our educational objectives are planned. So, but even then, when we have given importance for all these disciplines, why there is a gap? We always try to think there is no balance. There is always imbalance between theory and practice, and that is a main theme of this 2 days session, also webinar also. So I have come across with the fourth important aspect, which is considered as discipline of application. So when you have a discipline of application, only you can bring about best practice. I think Dr. Usha Kim has already emphasized on these things. Like, every time we try to practice, we just stop with practice. We don't apply those things when you're in a student period itself. We think the student will be able to do all these things when she becomes a full-fledged a practitioner or whatever it is. But as a student itself, it is her responsibility to develop her best practice. Then only we can balance this theory and practice. So for having best practice, discipline of application is another important component of any education system, especially health professional education system. So how, actually, if you see, practice is mainly focused on observe, decide, and act. We observe things, we decide, and we try to act. So only it will be complete, where you can apply whenever possible, wherever it is possible, and we can become expert in that particular skill. So this is the way you can balance skill and cognitive aspect, and skill psychomotor aspect. So I think all of you all know these terms. I think the previous speakers were also emphasized on this. Knowledge mainly focuses on problem solving, critical thinking, and decision making, whereas skill component mainly focuses on psychomotor skills and organization skills. Psychomotor is your dexterity, and your organization, you need to organize your skill, then only you can practice your skill. So these are the very important component for balancing knowledge and skill. So I think all of you all are very familiar with this Chinese proverb that I hear, I forget, I see and I remember, but when I do, I understand. So any type of skill component, unless until if we are not applying and practicing, it will never, you cannot keep it in your mind, and your practice, you cannot become an expert. Okay, that is an understanding. So you have to talk about this Edgar cone of learning, which also emphasizes the same part of it, that learning takes place in two forms, that is active learning and passive learning. So active learning is mainly where you practice and do, whereas passive learning is your observation and your visual receiving and your verbal hearing. These are the things. So why this active learning is in the bottom of the cone is because 90 percentage of your learning takes place only by active learning. That is why it has occupied the broader part of the Edgar learning cone. So that is why whatever you learn, you have to provide an opportunity and platform for the students to practice, depending upon the capacity of a student, not for equally for all the students. Though they sit in one particular classroom, you cannot give equal opportunity. You have to see who is going to be a poor student, and that student who has to be given more emphasis on practice skills. So I think learning objective, when you talk about educational objective, we always come across with this taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is the one which helps in formulating this educational objective. So Bloom's taxonomy focuses on three important domains, that is cognitive domain, which mainly focuses, which answers to the question of what and why. So which mainly focus on the scientific disciplines, whereas psychomotor domain, it mainly focus on the dexterity and your body mechanics and the way you handle things. Okay, it is mainly focusing on the hand skill of an individual. So it also emphasizes on the how questions are answered by the psychomotor skills domain. And affective domain, another important component. You cannot just stop with the cognitive and psychomotor. You have to focus on affective domain. Equal importance to be given as that of psychomotor and cognitive domain, where affective domain mainly concentrates on when, where, who, what is a behavioral attribute of an individual. Your moral values, ethics are concentrated or focused only by this affective domain. So if you see this circle, when you combine cognitive domain and psychomotor domain, your performance improves. When you combine psychomotor domain and affective domain, your clinical judgment improves. So you will be able to decide which patients want, what is a category of work or skill that is to be performed on each type of patients. Okay, and when you see cognitive domain and affective domain together, it tries to give us the critical thinking ability. So when critical thinking and clinical judgment combines together, only our competence level increases, where you become a best practitioner as such. So these are the three important taxonomy domains which has to be concentrated on each of our classes, whether it can be a theory class or it can be a practical class, skill development class. You have to have an objective based on these three domains. So I think this is another important slide, like where, I have given a picture that where they are learning gun and thing. Whatever weapon you use, as long as you practice the skill properly, you can use that weapon very well. It's not necessary that the problem is with the weapon. The problem is with the skill what you have. If you're not going to develop your skill properly, your weapon is not going to be positive. Your weapon is always dangerous. Okay, this is what you have to understand. This is the thing you have to keep in mind with skill also. So another important quote which attracted me when I was just preparing this slides: "A smooth sea never made a skillful sailor." So when a sailor wanted to really become skillful, he had to go with a very rough and tough sea. Then only he'll be able to learn how to manage the ship and how to bring the ship to the shore. Another simple thing. Okay, so this is the dosa what we made it, and this is the dosa what our mother made. So I think even when we would have started as children or at a smaller age, we would have started with this dosa only. But you just think how many times you would have made this dosa. So you would have made even 1,000 times, you would have made this dosa in order to bring to this shape and this attractiveness, creativity, and all these things. So this is what it is. It is not only in preparation of food, it includes in every part of our life what we are learning. It can be in learning part of your clinical skills, whatever it is. So when this dosa becomes this particular part, only your discipline of application is applied, where this Bloom's taxonomy has not they have indirectly concentrated on a discipline of application, which is a component of psychomotor skills, but this is considered as a very distinct component where we need to understand the application part of it in order to become skillful in your work. So I think all of us know about various types of learning, that is visual learning, auditory, tactile, and kinesthetic. I think I cannot explain all these things. It is self-explanatory. So all these four types of learning is needed in order to balance your theory and practice, your theory and skill. And what is this teacher's responsibility? I think Madam Sunita also focused the same thing. Teacher here, to maintain the balance between theory and practice, teacher act as a facilitator. Teacher must not be an authoritative person. Teacher can be a facilitator. She can facilitate. You see the picture what I have given. She can facilitate and bring the person up, a reflective enhancer, to enhance them to a better position and not in the same position. And what is the student responsibility? Student responsibility is student must be and will be a meaning maker. They try to slowly learn. It is not every student will be in a same category. There are different categories of students will be there. You have to give proper attention of each category of students and try to motivate them and bring to the better level. And knowledge constructor. So what is the learning environment? I think Madam has also concentrated on the thing. So whether it is not necessary that classroom environment must be ideal, even a clinical environment must be ideal. One example I can give, like suppose you would have given and this one demonstration of a procedure and take the student to the clinical area. But once when the clinical area, when she really touches the patient, she will be afraid. So it's not that every student will be very easy in handling a patient. So when such situation comes, comes, you have to understand the student's problem and try to help her, be with her and support her, and then make her to learn. So that is where your ideal learning environment must be there, even in the clinical setup, in the lab, in the skill lab, and in the classroom. So ideal learning environment includes safe environment of learning. Always there should be fun learning, though hospital is a serious place, but you can encourage them by giving positive motivation to them by having a fun learning, and less they lower the stress of the student. Suppose if the student is expressing that she is not able to, she is afraid to handle the patient, you can give her some more time to practice, make her to stand with the patient for some time, get used with that, and then go about doing the procedure. Even in the skill lab, if she is afraid, you can very well help her in handling those areas, and then take the demonstrate the procedure as such. And the environment should be always motivating. You are not supposed to have a scale and threaten the student nearby if you are not going to do, or shouting at the children in front of patients, which is so embarrassing situation that their student will never get an opportunity to learn. Even whatever they learn, they forget and do only mistakes. And allows practice. You keep on telling them, you keep in mind the discipline of application, and keep on telling them to practice. And all whatever facility which is available, it should be equally accessible for every student in that particular class. Not the student who are expert in that or brilliant students will get an opportunity, and other students will not get an opportunity. So accessible to everyone, uniform accessibility to everybody, and then it should be conducive and healthy. Another important point you have to keep in mind is you have to match both your objectives and your setting of learner. So you have to understand what is your objective of today, whether you're going to practice in skill lab or whether you're going to practice in the clinical area. So based on that, you try to prepare your objective and try to inform the students ahead, so that student will be very well prepared to face the real situation before going for their practice as such. So why we need to balance this theory and practice? So why? Because the present world is technologically improved a lot. So growing mistrust among the public now, they are aware more than us, because when they put something in a Google, automatically so many things, so many answers are coming. With that answers only, they come to us and ask doubts. So when we are not able to answer correctly, automatically they try to have a mistrust on us. That is one point. And performance emphasis is increasing. People will always ask whether this particular person is skillful. They never ask whether he's knowledgeable. They are skillful, then only they try to come to us. Okay. And greater public awareness. People are aware because everywhere it is in social media, in all this Google platform, everything, all the informations, anything is available. So it is easy for them to just Google search and get the informations. And enhance patient rights. Patient rights and consumer rights are given more importance in as a part of quality control and standards. So this is also another important aspect. And another important point, in previous time, if you say, people will ask whether I know things, but now they started asking whether I do things. So knowing is not adequate for me. I should really do things, then only people will, I can attract people and I can improve in my profession. So what is coming to the point, this is regarding to the this one, whatever I have focused about the introductory part of this, how to balance theory and practice. So this is I have taken a simple example of how to balance theory and practice. This is an one of the subject in the first year of nursing foundation is one subject. So what is the curriculum message, the syllabus given by the university is, if you see, the theory hours is 250 hours, skill lab hours is 200 hours. So this itself, it is around 80% of skill lab hours is given already as skill lab hours than the theory hours. And if you see clinical hours, it is more than double of the skill lab. So what is an understanding? We should have practice more than the theory. So theory, but what we do, we always give more of theory classes and less of, we lessen all these things because of lot of factors. So this is the imbalance we always create in our theory and practice. So Coming to the practical itself, the clinical part of it, clinical skill practice, if it is 100 percentage, you have to combine the skill lab and the clinical real situation. So 33 percentage must be given as skill lab hours, and 67 percentage should be in the clinical situation. So this is the balance you have to always. It is not only general part you have to keep in mind, every procedure what is there in each of your, like for example, if it is ALOP, you have to see what is the procedure for that particular trainee students. So each procedure you have to give 67 percentage in the real situation and 33 percentage in your skill lab. Another important point you have to have a flow sheet for each student. You see, this is the flow sheet which is created for our third year students. You see, I have written the student's name and all the procedure what is required for that particular year. So, and you have seen number of times, I have written number of times. This is an ordinarily for every student we try to have a common. We'll try to categorize the students into three group, like excellent, good and average. So average student, we see that we are giving opportunity for them to do double of the time all the skill procedure in front of us, either in skill lab or in the clinical area. Then only we'll try to sign in their logbooks. So every student will have a mini logbook. Mini logbook is signed once when she completes the number of times. Okay. So adopting the teaching strategy, there is skill lab teaching strategy and clinical teaching strategy. So when you go for skill lab teaching strategies, it is demonstration and written demonstration. One point you have to keep in mind is you must always have 1:4 ratio. 1 hour of demonstration must have 4 hours of written demonstration for the students. So then only it will match this 33 percentage and 67 percentage. And another important thing, competency based learning and teaching, which includes objective structured clinical examination and objective structured practical evaluation. So these two will help in understanding the skill of the student. You can really assess the skill of the students. Only subjectivity of the assessor has to be kept in mind whenever you are assessing. So this is another point, like OSPE, where objective structured practical examination, where this mainly help us to assess the knowledge on practice. Okay, like for example, instruments, how this instrument should be used. All these things can be assessed by using this particular test. And simulation model, I think I have another 2 minutes, sir.
Yes, I was about to mention if you could briefly close it in another 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Simulation model, when you see the simulation model, it is a low fidelity and moderate fidelity and high fidelity models are, well, high fidelity model is completely computer based, well, where everything can be fed and the you can learn the skill. And this is also another important thing, standardized patient simulator, where the real people act as a patient and the students will exhibit. These are all our students where they are practicing by one person is acting as an actor. So the standardized repeated story is consistently told by the patient and they'll try to do the demonstration. And computer based and mock drills, I think this all of us know, it is for large group exercises. AV recording, once you have to record whatever the student has done and you can discuss with the students as such. And video based exercise and clinical games is also, again, exercises are there where student will be able to do the exercise and try to understand the performance. Okay. Role play, I think all of us know about it. Reflective journaling, I think previous madam has told, whatever she has, a patient is given, she'll try to do the care and she will reflect what happened, so what I should do, what is going to be my next activity. So this is how she'll be able to learn. So this is about a classroom skill lab teaching. When you come to clinical teaching, I wanted to emphasize only two things. One is bedside clinic, where bedside clinic is you can either do individually or in group. Another thing, process recording and all other things are, this is 1 minute perceptor, where here, as the thing is going on, care is given, a teacher will, a perceptor will try to teach them by whatever clarification they have. More informations are given by the perceptor, and feedback is given by the perceptor regarding the mistakes what is done by the students. Okay. And case study methods and all the case incidents, these are all some of the things. And patient assignment is other thing, where you can bring the patient even to the skill lab area or to the patient in the clinical area, and you can tell the patients to, you can explain the patient to tell their story, so that student will be able to reflect about the patient. Okay. What are the triads student must need? So every student must have a stress tolerance, emotional stability, physical endurance, and hard work. Then only she'll be able to balance this theory and practice. Okay, so a patient rely on a health personnel who's honest, reliable, sincere, and competent. So when you balance theory and practice, automatically you become a well-versed health professionals. So to conclude my topic, all these information, knowledge, passion, dedication, leadership, skills must be thrown by a teacher, and the students are like an ant. They try to grab everything. You have to see which students should be given more and which students should be given less. Based on that, you try to give. Then only you can balance theory and practice in a good way. Thank you for the opportunity.